The big story, I think, this week is silver. And we'll see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow could be another big day. I think we've got an option expiration coming up. But silver prices hit $66 and I think 77 cents, almost $68. I mean, we closed last week, I think it was 62 from what I was saying on my podcasts. I said that I expected silver to take out 50 because that was the big double top. And that once it did, I thought we would have a quick move up to 100. I didn't think we would hit 100 this year, but I thought we would hit it next year. And we're on track. In fact, it's actually moving up even faster than I thought. Now, I'm not surprised that this is happening. What's actually surprising to me is that it took so long for this to happen. I mean, how long was silver at $30 when gold was 3,000 and higher? In fact, at one point, it was not only 100 to 1, it was like 108 ounces of silver for an ounce of gold. It was extremely absurd. Now it's back, around 65 or something like that. It's still cheap. It's just not as ridiculously cheap. That is in scarce supply. Trump declared it as strategic metal, silver, right? I mean, there's a lot of real industrial use. Big buyers need silver. And there's just not a lot of silver there. Now, my thinking is that below 50,000 is when a lot of these margin calls are going to get triggered, right? Where, okay, I borrowed money against my Bitcoin when it was worth 100,000, but now that it's worth 50,000, there's not enough collateral left for the lender. The lender's getting real nervous, right? And so the lender is going to contact the borrower and say, look, I don't know, you got 24 hours, 48 hours. You got to send in some more money. You got to send in some more Bitcoin. You got to do something because you got too much loan to value here. So you got whatever. And of course, they probably don't have the money because they spent it, right? That's why they borrowed it. If they had money, they wouldn't have taken out a loan. And so a lot of this Bitcoin is going to get sold. And the market's going to implode. Then it's going to trigger mass liquidations from the ETF investors who are not diehard Bitcoin maxis. They just bought this thing because they were told they'd make some quick money. A lot of them, unfortunately, sold their gold ETFs and their gold stocks to buy Bitcoin. They're going to cash out. There's nobody to take the other side of that trade. The big money that's been propping it up, they've been getting out, right? The OGs and the whales, they've been selling. They don't want to buy it back. Meanwhile, even Tether, that used to be a big buyer, they're buying gold. They're done buying Bitcoin, right? They want real gold, right? That's what they're buying. So we are, I think, on the verge of a major, major crash.
In this urgent podcast, Peter Schiff declares a historic market inflection point. Silver's explosive surge past $66 toward $100 is a long overdue catch-up to gold, fueled by a critical physical shortage. Simultaneously, he warns of an imminent, catastrophic crash in Bitcoin, predicting a break below $50,000 will trigger a death spiral of margin calls and liquidations, wiping out speculators and creating systemic risk.
Tomorrow morning, I would be buying more of these stocks, or if you don't own them, buy them, or get into my gold fund, the Euro-Pacific Gold Fund, EPGIX. Of course, if you buy that tomorrow, you get filled at the close, right? But that's still going to be okay because I think the big moves, again, are going to happen next week. Just like, it started just like I said last week on Sunday night. Silver gapped up to $3 on Monday. Had a big move, but you had all weekend to buy it. And again, you got to go to Schiff Gold and buy some gold and silver tomorrow, this weekend. Just don't wait till Sunday night because that's when Asia wakes up and they start buying as it was. But what's really been happening is silver is just catching up to gold, right? It's taken a long time, but now it's making up that lost ground quickly because gold hasn't really gone anywhere as silver's been rising, but it hasn't gone down. Gold is around 4,330, 50. The key is it's holding. It's not going down. I think what is happening too is people that were long gold and short silver, because that's obviously been a popular trade, that trade is being unwound. And so that means that you have to sell your gold and buy back the silver that you shorted. So that's probably keeping a lid on gold, but gold's not going down because there is still substantial buying of gold beneath the market. So we have very strong support now, above 4,000 for gold. And we're not going to get anywhere near 50 on silver again. I doubt it. I mean, is it possible that we could go back down and retest 50 again? I guess so. But I think the odds are that we're not going to get down there.
Schiff dismantles the political fantasy of a strong economy, citing weak jobs data and persistent inflation. He savagely critiques President Trump for seeking a Fed chair whose sole mandate is to cut rates, a move designed to deliberately devalue the dollar and kick the can down the road. Schiff's ultimate warning is clear: flee the coming dollar crisis and Bitcoin collapse by moving capital into physical gold, silver, and international investments immediately. Subscribe to Find Metals for future updates. For
a meltdown, a big crash in Bitcoin. And I say that mainly looking at Microstrategy stock. Because look at that chart. Look at this stock. It's hard to find a worse looking chart than Microstrategy. I mean, it closed at 158 today. The 52-week low is about 155. We'll probably take that out tomorrow. But I think at a minimum, in the very short run, it's going to get cut in half, maybe around 80, right? And there's no way that Microstrategy stock is going to go down by 50% and Bitcoin not go down, maybe not quite as much. So the discount that it trades at relative to Bitcoin will widen, but Bitcoin's going to go down at least to 50,000. You'd have to say at least 50,000 if Microstrategy goes down to 80. And it could do that before the end of the year. Now, 50,000 is still a high price for Bitcoin because it's nothing, right? You're buying nothing and you're paying 50,000 for it, right? So it's a lot. But Trump talked about his pick last night. And what Trump said was that he is going to appoint a Fed chairman who wants lower interest rates. Now, that should scare the hell out of anybody that has U.S. dollars, right? He didn't say, I'm going to appoint the best man for the job or gal for the job, best person. I'm going to appoint somebody who's determined to maintain the purchasing power of the dollar, maintain price stability, be a good steward of the dollar and its role, be above the political fray, be independent. No, he didn't say that. He said, I am going to put somebody in charge of the Fed who is going to lower interest rates, whether the economy calls for lower interest rates or not, is basically what he's saying. I am sending somebody to the Fed with a directive to cut interest rates, right? That's it. And if you're not going to give me your word that you're going to cut rates, and if I don't trust that you're going to do it, because obviously, you could change your mind, right? Once you get the job, you're there, right? The president can't fire you. I mean, he's trying. So he wants to make sure he's got a real Trump supporter that won't stab him in the back, right? By doing what's right for the country, that is going to be loyal to Trump above all else, right? That is the one criteria that Trump has. You will do exactly what I ask you to do, right? And if you say yes, you got the job, right? I think that's who he's going to put in charge. The one he thinks is most likely not to, disappoint him, not to knife him in the back and say, you know what? Sorry, Mr. President. I now that you appointed me, I take this job too seriously. I got to do what I got to do. And, we can't cut rates. That's not the guy. Trump does not want that kind of guy. He wants a yes man. He wants a team player. And he's making that pretty obvious, right? That the Fed chairman is going to be the puppet and he's going to be the puppeteer. See, the reason the Fed is looking past the higher inflation that they're uncomfortable with is because they're worried about the economy. They're worried about the labor market. They're worried about a lot of things. Well, if we have the strongest economy in the world and in the history of America, what the hell are they worried about? Why do they have to cut rates? Why can't they raise rates? In this super strong economy, why can't they raise rates so we can bring inflation down? Right? No. We have to risk inflation going up because the economy is so vulnerable. It's so weak that if we don't cut rates and go to QE, the whole thing is going to implode. That came out this week. We actually got a jobs report and an inflation report that we got. And the jobs report, I think, came out yesterday, right? So everything is kind of coming out at the wrong time, because of the government shutdown. But we got the November non-farm payroll report. Now, I take these numbers with a very, very small grain of salt, right? But we got 64,000 jobs created. That's not a lot of jobs. And the forecast was 40,000. That's also a pretty low forecast. So I guess people focused on the fact that we had a really low bar and we cleared it. But I doubt we cleared it. By the time they revise this number, I expect it to be negative. Now, where we did get bad news officially was on the unemployment rate, which ticked up to 4.6%, which is like a 4-year high. The safe thing to do is get the hell out now. Just wait. Just wait a while. Just see. It's not going to run away to the upside, right? It's either going to crash or maybe it's going to go down a little or go sideways. There's very little upside. The upside's in gold and silver, right? Get rid of your Bitcoin, go to Schiff Gold, cash in your Bitcoin, buy some gold and silver. Because this is going to be a epic decline. And it's ironic, too, because, I do think we're going to have a dollar crisis, but the Bitcoin crisis is going to happen first, far away from the U.S. stock market. In the 2008 financial crisis, everybody fled to the dollar. This crisis is going to be because everybody is fleeing from the dollar. And it's a whole different ballgame in how you need to be invested. Gold and silver will do much better than they did in 2008, but so will foreign stocks, emerging markets. So you need to load up on these things now before the new year. And I do think that when the new year starts and people look back at where the good returns were in 2025, they're going to see the performance. In fact, our dividend payer strategy is up about 60% on the year. I mean, that dwarfs the S&P. So people are making a lot of money investing internationally. And I think in January, people are going to look back at 2025. In fact, I think we're going to win some Lipper awards for our funds for the best performing funds. We'll see. I think my value fund is going to win the #1 fund over the past 10 years. So the president is claiming that all of this investment is coming, all of this reshoring, all of these factories and production, it's all coming back, right, because of his wonderful tariffs that are making us rich. Yet manufacturing continues to contract. People continue to lose jobs in manufacturing. So none of this is happening. This is all a fantasy. All the tariffs are doing is making the stuff that we import more expensive. And they're also allowing companies that produce some of the stuff that might compete with the imports to raise their prices too. So that's all Trump is accomplishing with the tariffs is higher taxes and higher prices. That's it. We're not getting rich. We're not revitalizing our manufacturing, nothing. And the numbers, as, rigged as they are, I guess, bear that out. So we had a weak jobs number. Private payrolls up 69,000, almost the same as total. So, not a lot of government. At least that's one good thing. Maybe the government lost some workers, which is a positive, but it's still a slowdown from the prior month. And again, I don't even believe these numbers. Nobody should believe these numbers. They're going to get revised again and again. And we know the direction that the revisions are going to come in. and that's down. And in fact, even the Fed, Powell admitted at his last press conference that the numbers are exaggerated and that they're probably always maybe 60,000 less than what the government claims. And if that's the case, they claim 64,000. So that's pretty much a push, meaning no jobs. But again, I still think it's going to end up being job losses. All Trump wants to do is blow air into this bubble. That is his only goal, to prevent everything from collapsing while he's still there, right? Just like a lot of bad things that happened under Biden started under Trump, like all the inflation that he wants to blame on Biden. He's responsible for most of that because he did the policies in 2020 under COVID, the massive increase in deficit spending and all the money printing. Biden just happened to be there when the consequences of all the inflation showed up in prices. Had Trump been reelected, same thing, right? But he conveniently could say, hey, there was no inflation when I was president. Of course there was. Money supply exploded. It just showed up on Trump. And in fact, I made this point on Tucker Carlson. I did the Tucker Carlson interview, by the way. I did that Tuesday. They haven't put it up yet. But I made the point that the CPI really started to increase in the last 4 or 5 months of the Trump administration, maybe 3 or 4, and into the first few months of Biden, before Biden had a chance to do anything, before any of his policies took effect. And it's not a coincidence that the highest year of inflation under Biden was the first year, because that was caused during Trump. You can't hold Biden responsible for the 2021 inflation. Donald Trump media was up 40% today. The stock was on a 52-week low. Like, the stock had been getting killed because it doesn't have a viable business. First it was, Truth Social, but that's not making any money. I mean, it's an echo chamber for Trump to go out and post his, his ravings to his loyal fans, but it doesn't make any money. And so then they pivoted to a Bitcoin treasury company. And of course, that's not working out because all the Bitcoin treasury companies are getting killed because Bitcoin is getting killed. And I'm going to talk about that because it's going to get decimated very soon. So it pivoted to that. And now it just announced a merger with a fusion energy company. Now, of course, nuclear fusion, I don't think we can do that yet. I mean, it's a goal that they're working on, I guess. But what the hell does a nuclear fusion company have to do with a social media company that's losing money or a Bitcoin treasury company that's losing money? I mean, what does this energy company have to gain by this merger that on paper has now made billions for Trump based on the appreciation, right?